bin al-Mu'attal as-Sulami ad-Dakhwani was behind the army. This is one of the Sahaba. It happens sometimes that some people, they will come behind on purpose to make sure the army didn't lose anyone, didn't leave anything behind and so on. Or that somebody was delayed for any number of reasons, so they may come late. So now, he had started in the last part of the night and he reached my stationing place in the morning. And I saw the figure, and he saw the figure of a sleeping person. He came to me and recognized me on seeing me, for he used to see me before the veiling. Okay? I got up because of his saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So now what happened? Aisha radhiyallahu anha fell asleep. What we know from the description of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, that they cover their faces. Hijab has been revealed. There's a difference of opinion now among scholars whether hijab is, whether niqab, covering the face, is mandatory or sunnah. Is that right? There's a difference of opinion among scholars. There's no difference as to whether it's a practice that exists in Islam. All scholars agree, niqab is part of Islam. But they disagree over whether it's considered a voluntary action, you are rewarded for doing it, or whether it's obligatory, meaning you will be sinful if you don't wear it. For ladies, it's considered actual part of their hijab or not. So now scholars will come to events like this to use it either in support of their argument or not. So scholars that are in support of the niqab being mandatory, they use this as an evidence that niqab is mandatory. Why? Because she says, he used to see me before hijab. Meaning what? Meaning he knows what my face looks like. And when he came up, while she's sleeping, is she wearing niqab? No. She's sleeping. She was there alone. She doesn't expect that anyone's going to see her. She's uncovered her face. She fell asleep. As soon as she woke up from him speaking, what did she do? She covered her face immediately, as she describes. So they use this as evidence to say that it's obligatory for Muslim women to cover their face. Those who go for that opinion, I'm not saying what my opinion is, but I'm saying here what scholars will use now when they want to debate on this kind of issue. You see how they will use this kind of evidence. They will say, oh, look at this situation now, where he used to know what she looks like because he saw her before hijab. Meaning because of hijab, nobody will be able to see the lady's face anymore, and he wouldn't be able to recognize her because he's not one of her relatives and so on. But he knew her from before and had seen her from before. And then as soon as she knew that he was there and he could see her, she covered her face. She covered her face. Now, the other issue is when Safwan walks up, does he say, Assalamu alaikum sister, how are you? How's everything? We didn't see you for a long time. We miss you. Can we have some tea? What did he say? He said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. He didn't even say salam. So the scholars, they have talked about this issue because sometimes sisters will be upset. But they said, in general, salam is not mandatory. To say salam alaikum, it's not mandatory. It's mandatory to respond to salam. Allah commands that if someone says salam to you, you have to respond. So between men and women who are not married or not necessarily relatives, there's not necessarily an obligation that they send salam to one another. If they do, it's okay. It's something acceptable and you can respond, of course. But the idea, as we mentioned previously, in interactions between men and women, especially talking or this kind of face-to-face interactions and so on, there are two main conditions that you use to control them. Number one, that there is a valid reason. Bil ma'ruf. It's not for flirting purposes. It's not for any kind of hanky-panky or this kind of haram intentions. Your intention and the reason is valid. There's some business transaction going on between you. There's some need, some necessity, some basic element of life that requires men and women to deal with one another. Number two, the way in which you deal with each other is la rayb. There's nothing doubtful about it. You don't start talking in an inappropriate way. You don't change your voice, and the girl doesn't try to make herself like this, and the guy tries to make himself like that, in the way that they are talking, the way that they are behaving with one another. So it should be quite formal and professional. The way you would talk with any a boss or something like this, not the way you would talk with your maybe best friend and co-worker. No, it's something that is quite appropriate. This is someone you are talking to. It could be someone else's wife, could be someone else's daughter and sister. You have that kind of respect and so on. This is a reminder, yani, especially for our brothers. So we see now that when he came, the first thing he says is Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What does Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un mean? It's something we say when there's what? When there's musibah, some catastrophe, something bad happened, because he found her by herself. She's a young girl and the whole army is gone. And he knows that she got left behind by accident. This is not something that was intentional or something like that. So now he feels very, you can say, concerned for her that she's been there by herself. But look at the beautiful adab and etiquette that he has. So she says, I got up because of his saying, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, which he uttered on recognizing me. I covered my face with my garment. And by Allah, oh, I forgot to mention that part earlier. I thought I had read it. I covered my face with my garment, she says. And by Allah, he did not say to me a single word except, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. That's the only thing that he said. Till he made his she-camel kneel down, whereupon he trod on its four legs, and I mounted it. So now he made the she-camel get down, so she can climb up. And then what did he do? Did he come and say, here, I'll help you get up? He went to the front, and he stood on its four legs, on its front legs. This is a way that you anchor the camel so it cannot get up. Camel is quite strong animal, huge animal, can be also very vicious or stubborn. So now he's locking it in so that it will not do that, and so that she can get up comfortably and easily. And he went in front, so he's giving his back to her, he's not looking at her. So you can see this kind of precise etiquette. So you've heard, for example, Abu Abd Salam, Sheikh Abu Abd Salam, he mentions the story of Musa alayhi salam with the two ladies. Have you heard about the story of Musa alayhi salam when he is fleeing for his life? He has killed, right, the Egyptian man by accident, and now he's wanted. So they want to get him, and they want to use this accident against him. So he decides to flee Egypt. So as he has fled and he is exhausted, he gets to this destination where he's going to rest and feel safe. He comes to a watering hole, or a place where people are bringing their animals to be able to give them to drink and so on. So he sees some ladies, they are standing outside, they are unable to get in. It's all men there, and they are pushing each other and quite aggressive and so on. So he decides, even though he's exhausted, he has this personality that he doesn't like to see oppression or injustice. So immediately he goes and he pushes his way in and he gets water for them. He asks them, why are you standing out? They said, we need to get water. Our father is an old man. There's no one else to do it. And we are trying just to wait for our turn, basically, until someone would allow us that we can get in. So he pushes in, he gets the water for them and so on. So they go back and tell their father, and then the father says, bring him to me. So they go back. And now, when they want to take him back, he doesn't feel that it's appropriate that he will walk behind them. This is the kind of etiquette that he has, subhanAllah. You can see the very cautiousness and sensitivity in dealing appropriately between men and women. And brothers should think about this. Sometimes you are walking behind some lady, especially you have a beard and you're wearing some kind of hat and all this stuff. They will be maybe scared of you. Like, who's this guy walking behind me, and he's walking aggressively, and I don't know what is he doing. So you should be aware of this kind of stuff and what feeling those who are around you may have. So you don't make someone to feel uncomfortable or unsafe or something like this. So he said, I will walk ahead. And even to reduce that they will not have to communicate with him in any way and not even expose their voice to him, he said, you want me to turn right, you just throw a pebble to the right. You want me to go left, you just throw a pebble to the left. See this kind of, imagine this level that the Prophet Musa alayhi salam is having. So there is a sort of sensitivity that's been lost in our dealings actually as Muslims between men and women. This is the highest level of actual respect and modesty and chastity that should exist in society. Some people, they will try to attack this and say, oh, this is oppression of women. This is not oppression of women. For me, oppression of women is when you make the woman go half naked on a billboard for everyone to look at. And then you make her some kind of sex object and slave and use her only for this kind of physical thing, subhanAllah. For me, this is oppression. But oppression, when you say that the one who has no right to look at a woman or to talk to her in an inappropriate way will never do so. Because she's dressed properly, because also he understands the proper way and the proper etiquette to interact with that lady. This is respect. And this is the form of honoring that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed our ummah with. So sometimes people will misunderstand. I remember in the United States, for example, when a woman will reach out her hand, so I will say, I'm sorry, actually I'm Muslim, and I don't shake hands with ladies that are not, you know, closely related to me or my wife. So they will say, oh, okay, I'm very sorry, I didn't understand, I didn't know that that's your way, and so on. Sometimes they've dealt with Muslims, but most Muslims will be okay with it, so they get a bit confused. And I said, this is actually meant out of respect for you. And this is a form of modesty and chastity that we try to follow as Muslims. So please, you don't be offended by that in any way and so on. And actually, the reaction I will get, I'm surprised, usually is very positive. The person will feel actually it's something nice for a change. They don't feel like someone is trying to stare at them and look at them inappropriately or talk to them and treat them in a disrespectful way and so on. So this is something we should be proud of as Muslims and do our best to follow. So